Jason.
Thank you for having me.
So Jason has a company called Fierce Inc. And they do visual marketing. Now, you probably think, what the heck does a podcast on getting rid of your debt have to do with a internet marketing company?
hmm
Well, so here's the thing. One way to get rid of your debt is to make money.
Right.
One way to make money is advertising, marketing, getting yourself out there on social media, getting yourself out there on the internet, generating SEO, doing all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so that's why I wanted to have Jason on the episode to talk to us about all that kind of stuff. So, again, welcome. Let me know, what does Fierce Inc. You can't necessarily tell from the title, which I think is intentional.
Yeah.
So what does Fierce Inc. do?
What we do is we take someone's ideas about what they want to do with their company, and usually there's a very long blurb, or they have a mission and a vision, and they sit down and explain it to me, and it takes about 45 minutes, right? Or I read it on paper, and there's several pages, and what I do is I take that information and I bring it down into one little bite-sized piece of information, usually 3 to 5 words, something powerful and poignant that can get that point across. And I help them kind of put those into different channels so that they become points of engagement and memory, so that they can be recalled and engage with their customers or clients better.
But engage more visually.
Visually, yes. I focus on the visual elements because it takes me back to like when I was a kid. I hate reading. I don't know about you, but I absolutely hate reading.
I'm an attorney. I have to read.
I know. Bless your heart. You can't get away from it.
I can't.
But when I was a kid, I loved pop-up books. I mean, I remember it was the hardest thing for me to get rid of with reading. They were like, "Oh, but you're on this, supposed to be on like a 6th grade reading level." And I'm like, "Oh, but I like pop-up books." And so it felt a little weird, but now it makes sense to me because a good web design or a good piece of literature that explains what you do incorporates a lot of visuals to enhance that. And statistics and studies show that things are far more memorable if they have a powerful, impacting image to go along with it. So that's what I do.
That is really interesting. So let's rewind it a little bit and talk about startup companies.
Okay.
So what advice would you give to a startup company that's looking to create its market, looking to create its brand?
Yeah, startup companies are unique. They typically don't have really an idea or any experience per se with a lot of budgeting, right? There's not necessarily a ton of it to begin with, and what they do have maybe is coming from founders or investors, and they want to be very careful about where they spend it and what they do with it. So what I always have them do is think about the ways that they want to engage with their customers and put their money on those items, those pieces. Like a lot of people will say things like, "Oh, business cards are dead. They're looking for something, to kind of go to this new age or tech, or how do I get a better advantage or ahead of the game?" And honestly, like, business cards are important.
Yeah.
But when you start to have that conversation about business cards, then it's about, well, how's your brand being reflected on business cards? So initially, investing in getting a branding kit together is important. There's a style guide that they need so that anything they go to any other printer, they're going to know how things are printed. And there's a specific style that keeps our tone of voice and keeps are we edgy professional? Are we clunky and cool? Or are we completely professional and shirt and tie, tight-laced, right? And keeping that tone of voice alive all through their brand and every piece makes them more memorable. Like Batman looks the same all the time.
Right.
And when you see the bat signal go up, you know what to expect.
Exactly.
And evildoers beware, right? Like there's a very, very specific thing that one image communicates. And so understanding that brand element and kind of investing in that up front, and then getting the pieces that become tangible and interactive with their customers is the best place to start. They don't have to go into massive sales kits or things like that, but some of the flyer pieces, business cards, and then get some of the social media stuff set up, because social media right now is huge.
Yeah, and I want to go into social media a bit. I mean, before we started recording the podcast, and now as we're recording this episode of the podcast, we're also recording on Facebook Live. And all of Facebook Live is watching us here. So what are some of the other Facebook Live? I think for me, we were talking before we recorded that my podcast has started to now take that hockey stick curve in terms of the number of listeners that I'm able to bring in. I think it's because of my engagement with Facebook Live. And for the record, absolutely appreciate everybody who's listening. it's a different perspective when you click on the mic and you think, am I talking for myself? Versus you click on the mic and you go, wow, I'm talking to hundreds and hundreds of people are now listening, thousands of people potentially, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands are now listening to this podcast. Puts it into a new perspective. It's really interesting. So talk a little bit about where social media is, what you like about social media, how you engage social media for clients, for your company, for your business. Talk about some of that stuff.
Perfect. One of the things that I want to start with what I don't like about social media.
Sure.
Right. What I don't like about social media is how when we get on there for business, it's all about business. We kind of lose that balance. We've all known that person who started a business or started some sort of like personal program they're working with, and then it just takes over all of their Facebook feed. People tend, when they get saturated with content like that, they tend to unfollow.
Okay.
Which means you lose them. Keep balance. Keep a balance.
Well, and that's why I've got my personal page and I've got my my business page, the Yesner Law page. Yes. And I try to keep those two things separate. So you're not really going to find my kids very much on the Yesner Law feed.
Right.
And you're not really going to find a lot of law firm stuff other than maybe right now. I guess we did a little experiment. Facebook Live only works on the iPhone, not on the desktop.
Right. Yeah.
So this post happens to be on my personal page, but I agree with you. I try not to mix the two. The other social media rule that I tend to follow is if I wouldn't want my grandmother reading it,
oh, there you go.
it doesn't go up on social media.
I said that to a class of teenagers I was teaching before about social media. That's funny. Yeah.
So we talked about the bad. Talk a little bit about the good.
The good. Okay, the good things are there's a lot of engagement opportunity and a lot. If you have a group of founders or board of directors, a lot of nonprofits can benefit from this kind of information. Like you have 5 to 6, maybe 10 people in a nonprofit board of directors setting, where they're immediately bought in, right? They're fully invested, and they are on social media 9 times out of 10. And some of them maybe not, but almost all of them are now. And there's an immediate share group that you can put together that as soon as something goes out through your channel, it gets shared. And then every single person, see, there's an issue with the businesses being on there through a businesses page. Facebook kind of limits what, if you have 1,000 viewers, you get about maybe 10% when you post something, and then you have to pay as a business to boost that. There's some benefit to doing that. But if you're looking and you're trying to crush debt and you're looking wisely where you want to spend your money, putting together an organic group of people that will share your content and are willing to do that is a great way to kind of hit the ground running with some sort of visibility, because now every single one of the people that's following them in their friends list of up to 5,000 people, you now have immediate access to, and personal accounts don't get throttled.
Right. And I notice the engagement whenever I do a podcast. So I'll post it out, I'll blast it out on social media, but then one of the other things I'm going to ask you to do is for you to share it on social media, because I know that you and I have overlapping networks, but we have different networks. So by getting you to share it on your social media, now I may attract some other listeners through you that I didn't even know.
Oh, absolutely.
So I absolutely love it. Well, I want to give people an opportunity, if they want to get a hold of you to talk about their visual marketing, to talk about SEO, to talk about that type of stuff, if they are interested in using the internet to make themselves more money so they can get rid of their debt, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
One of the best things they could do would be to go to my website first and just kind of see what I do, because I put a sample of what I do up there. Build the site the way I would build it for anyone else.
Okay.
And it's wearefierce.net.
Okay. And I'll post a copy of that. Sure. I'll post it up here when I do the notes and whatnot. But okay, so wearefierce.net.
My contact info is on there as well.
Okay.
My email address is jcrawford@wearefierce.net, just the letter J.
Okay.
And Crawford. And then my phone number, it's 813-789-5773.
Very cool. Yeah. I will post all of that when this show goes live, which so we'll talk about that here in a minute as well. So we are pretty much out of time. I like to keep the episodes right around 10 minutes.
All right.
One of the features that I started here recently from a listener was a tip at the end of every episode, 30, 60 seconds, on how to really get rid of debt. And so my tip for this week is don't be intimidated. The creditors cannot do that much. So maybe they can garnish, but there's ways we can make the garnishment go away. Outside of that, I like to tell a lot of people who say, well, I have nothing and I'm worried about the creditors coming after me. Well, if you have nothing, they can take nothing. So focus on what's exempt, focus on those types of things. reach out. Let us know if there's any other way we can help. But I think we have pretty much wrapped it up for this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you, Jason, for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will talk to you again in next week's episode. Looking forward to talking to everybody again. We appreciate your time in listening to this week's episode of the podcast, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks. Cool. And so we're done recording. And so Facebook Live, we are now done recording. Thank all of you for paying attention and listening in to how we record the Crushing Debt podcast. We hope you appreciate the information in the episode. Look for this episode to be published probably sometime in April, I'm thinking. April of this year, I'll get this episode engineered and published. But thank you all for listening, and I'll tune in again to Facebook Live next time I do another episode, and we will talk to you then. Thanks.
I think it wasn't recording.
Oh, it stopped.
Yeah, I think it had an error. I don't know if it was because you toggled away or not.
It may have, but
We'll have to watch the video to see.